Well, good morning and welcome to Wake Up in the Word. Thanks for joining me today. We're in day 43 of the Servant Gospel, starting the 14th chapter of the Gospel of Mark. Come join me. As we get there for our prayer shout out today, I want to ask you to pray for Susie Black, her husband Kim. It's not perhaps a well-known fact, but ever since we served with Susie up there in the Buncombe Baptist Association and in the Pole Creek Baptist Church, Susie has a prayer ministry. Every Saturday night, we get a post. When I say we, those of us who are in the ministry that she knows, that she is praying for us as we preach the word on the Lord's Day. She has faithfully been doing this for a long time. And every single week on Saturday night, she is lifting up prayers for those of us in the ministry that she's acquainted with. And Susie, the prayers are not only appreciated, they're not only needed, but I think they are quite often felt in our times of distress and need. So thank you so much for praying for us. Today, I'd ask you to pray for Susie Black. Of course, her husband Kim, and God has blessed them, of course, with the son named Adam, who is also a pastor that she prays for every week as well. So God bless you and your ministry as it continues there from Asheville, North Carolina. Well, we're in Mark chapter 14. Beginning in verse number 1, we enter a new phase. Jesus has finished his Olivet Discourse, and it tells us that the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread were only 2 days away. And the chief priests and the teachers of the law were looking for some way to arrest Jesus and kill him. It's interesting that as we look at this passage today, I would give it a title. I would call it a worshiper among conspirators. We're going to see what one worshiper does, even though people are swirling around Jesus, trying to plot a way to arrest him and to kill him. Not during the feast, they said, or the people may riot. They would soon change their mind and perhaps see a way that during all these festivities, maybe they could get Jesus out of the way. Well, while this is going on in verse 3, it said, while he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor. And they rebuked her harshly. We think this probably was the same person identified in the Gospel of John as Mary, as in Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus. Some say maybe it's a different person, a different account. I think it's too close that you can't separate those. In either way, she had reason to worship and chose to worship the Lord. And it's funny that those who were criticizing her probably had done the least of any to take care of the poor. But she was a good person to use for their political scheme. You know, lies have no end these days, and if you can lie about your opponent loudly enough, you can just get them to believe the lies, and that seems to be the way politics works. So here these evil conspirators were working in the life of Jesus to try to kill him, while Mary is there worshiping. Let's see what happens. In verse number 6, Jesus responds to their criticism. Leave her alone, said Jesus. Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. Now, the poor you will always have with you, and you can help them anytime you want, should you want. Yeah, they're there. What are you doing about the poor? Help them anytime you like. But watch this. You will not always have me. She did what she could. Don't you love that phrase? What could she do to show her gratitude to Jesus for the great miracle that had been performed in her life? What could she do? She could worship. It says she poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. And I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. It is something we always miss when we jump over this passage, and that's the fact that because Jesus says She's putting this perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. He's indicating that Mary, the one willing to sit at the feet of Jesus and learn from him, learn from the teacher, may have grasped even more than many of the disciples the fact that Jesus was about to die. She had listened to what he said. She had taken it to heart. And he had said, I'm going to Jerusalem to lay my life down, and I'm going to sacrifice myself as the Passover lamb, and 3 days later will be raised again. It is perhaps even from this motivation, not just her gratefulness, that she was worshiping the Lord, recognizing that the time had come. Well, it also caused something else. It may have been a little trigger in the mind of one of the disciples. In verse number 10, it says, Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. Well, they were delighted to hear this, and they promised to give him money. So he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Isn't it amazing? In the middle of all the people that surrounded Jesus there were other disciples that honored him and followed him. But what stood out on this day was a worshiper willing to break an expensive jar of perfume onto the body of Jesus and demonstrate her love for him, knowing he was about to demonstrate his love for us. That was true worship. In the midst of those who were completely clueless as to how Jesus could positively impact their life, and instead they are trying to kill him. Where does Jesus fit into your day today? Is he an object of your worship? Or are you just trying to kind of hide out from him and let him not see what you're doing because it dishonors God? Oh, friends, listen. Be on the side of the worshiper today. Put Jesus first this morning. Talk to him early and often, and let him guide you through your day. We'll see you again tomorrow right here as we wake up in the Word.